welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper. I'm Lori, and I'm glad you're here. So today we're going to talk about big books. I love big books, and I named this video aptly because I am not afraid of big books, but I haven't read a lot of big books this year. And I think the reason is because I had a goal to increase the number of books I read this year, and I didn't want to get involved in a lot of big books and then not meet my goal, which has happened in the past. Now, though, I exceeded my original goal, which was 40 books for this year. I'm almost to 50 books for this year, and it's September 7th today. So I'm really thinking about, okay, like, what do you want to do for the next couple of months? You've got 4 months essentially left till the end of the year. What do you want to read? And some of the big books are calling me, and I want to just honor them. I'm not going to read all of these books before the end of the year, but I am curious about how I can make the space to add a couple of them, perhaps before 2019 ends. What I'd like to do is talk about all of these books and then maybe see where I am on September the 7th, 2020. And if I have read all of these books, then I'll do a sort of a check-in by then and kind of talk about them, or I'll check in and say, oh, I didn't get to these, but I still want to. But for now, I am really excited to tell you about some of the big books that are on my shelves and the ones that I really feel like I want to get to read pretty soon. So we'll start with a trilogy by Greg Iles. This is the Natchez Burning trilogy, and the first one is Natchez Burning. I was gifted this one by someone who really enjoyed it and thought I would like it too, and I never really picked up any of his books, and I didn't want to start with this one because I hadn't. So I read the first of his Pen Cage series, which is The Quiet Game, and I really liked it. And then I kind of cooled off on him for a bit, not because he wasn't good. I actually met him in person. I scrapbooked my meeting him in person. It was quite a fangirl experience. He has a chemistry about him that is pretty intense. But I didn't go past them at that point, but I got really excited about this trilogy because at the time I met him, the second one was coming out, I think. So this one is 788 pages. It's really hard to take when you're traveling, so I'm not taking it with me on these trips, but I am interested in it. So this trilogy really follows the introduction of a sort of a scandal involving his dad, Dr. Tom Cage, and someone else, and there's a murder case against his dad and at some point in the trilogy, and it's just he really has to do a lot of investigating and save his dad from, whatever might happen as a result of a conviction, and some other things happen, and I don't want to know too much about it except that it is a pretty nice trilogy. I have heard that you don't have to read all of the Pen Cage novels in order. It's nice if you do, but I don't know that I can do that because this is let me see what number this is. I think this is number 4 of 6. So this is 4. This is 5, which is the second in the trilogy, The Bone Tree. I got it in this size. Not fond of that. May have to go ahead and get a hardback copy. These are really hard to read in this size, and because it's this size, it's almost 900 pages. Yeah, and then the third one is Mississippi Blood. Natchez Burning, The Bone Tree, Mississippi Blood, and this is the final installment in this trilogy. Now, are there going to be more Pen Cage novels? Probably, but this was the last. So I got this one, actually, I got signed. So this must have been the event that I went to where I saw him, because he signed this one. But I don't think he signed this one. Nope, I'm wrong. he did sign this one, and he signed this one for me as well. He's a lovely guy, actually. Yeah, nice guy. So I would love to finish those because they've been on my shelf. I don't have a lot of his, but I do have a few. I also have one of his called Black Cross, which is pretty lengthy, and it's about World War II, but it's a standalone. So I'll add that in to my Greg Iles interest and TBR for my big books. Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin and the subsequent installments of this series has been on my mind for a while. I tried to start listening to it and I could not stay focused on it for some reason. So I gave it up, but that was years ago. Then I gave up all of it. Then I got it on ebook and I started it, and then I gave it up before it was due back at the library. And then one day I was at the library and I got the standalone. I have watched the series, so it's not normal for me to watch the series before I read the books, but I did in this case. Did get all of them for my son for Christmas one year because he wanted them. I don't know that he's finished them either, but I would like to at some point see how I feel about this particular series. This one is, oh my gosh, it's so long that it hasn't even, oh, that's the excerpt maybe from the other one. So it's about 830 pages or so. There's an appendix, so it might be somewhat less than that. This saga follows a number of houses that all are in sort of in rule over certain kingdoms. And if you, I mean, I don't know that there's anyone in the world that hasn't heard of Game of Thrones, but you may not be familiar with the storyline. But there's a lot of war and there's a lot of terrible things that happen. And of course, everyone is sort of vying for the sort of the title of the biggest, most powerful ruler of all of the seven kingdoms. And there are some creepy, ghosty, zombie people, and there are some pretty awful rulers and some that are pretty wonderful. And this first book just follows the sort of setting up of all of the characters and the conflict and what begins to happen as a result. I would love to start to read these at my leisure. Again, this is not my favorite version, but I got it at a book sale, and it was, no, I think I actually got this at Goodwill. They're pretty accessible in paperback, and, you know, I'll be all right if I decide to read it that way. So the next one that really interests me is the Pillars of the Earth trilogy. I think it's a trilogy. I've watched, again, sort of not my typical way of being. I watched The Pillars of the Earth. It was a mini series on Stars, I think, several years ago, and loved it, but never read the book. So The Pillars of the Earth, which I don't own, is the first one. World Without End is the second in that trilogy by Ken Follett. It is also, I mean, that's why we're here. It's big books, but this one is over 1,000 pages in this version. And the third one is The Column of Fire. So I would like to take a look at those. Historical fiction set in England in the Middle Ages, centers around the building of a cathedral and the rule and the politics around that rule at that time. The way the church is involved in some of the politics, which fascinates me. A great story. So The Pillars of the Earth is number 1, World Without End is number 2, and Columns of Fire is number 3. So that is one series of Ken Follett's that I would like to take a look at. And then I also, at a book sale, got The Winter of the World, which is number 2 in the Centuries trilogy. So there's a whole nother trilogy that I could take a look at if I decide to do so. So the order of these is the, hold on, before I tell you wrong, The Fall of Giants, Winter of the World, which is number 2, and Edge of Eternity, which is number 3. So I don't own all of those. I do own just this one. But if I can, what I'd like to do is finish this first um, Pillars of the Earth trilogy. And then if I complete that, then I will take a look at this. Ken Follett is an amazing author, very detailed. Again, just this one is 940 pages, really big, epic stories that I think draw people in. Most people I know have been able to finish them. While they're big, here's what I know about big books is I want to be able to finish. That's ultimately the goal. And that's probably another reason why I avoid big books, because I'm afraid I won't finish and I'll get sort of bored by it. So I have to get real intentional when I decide to take on these big books, and I can't wait too long in between, because if I do wait too long in between, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, then I don't remember what happened, and then I have to go back and read from the beginning, which is not ideal. So let's talk about that when we talk about Diana Gabaldon. Yeah. So I read all of them pretty steadily and got pretty sort of caught up with them until because it takes her so long to write a new book. I just discovered that when I got to the next installment, when it first finally came out, I had kind of forgotten what happened before that. So the one of these that I have read is A Breath of Snow and Ashes, but because it was so long ago between this one and this one, and these are so heavy. No, now you know I don't travel with them. And this one, that I realized that I had to go back. So I finished A Breath of Snow and Ashes. I started an Echo in the Bone, and I just couldn't remember what had happened, who had gone where, and why we were even talking about these things. I got this one when it came out because, of course, I had to have it. But now I feel like, okay, I have to go back. So I'm starting these little by little, listening to them very slowly, not feeling good about that. So I really want to make a commitment, and I said this in another video, I really want to make a commitment to get to these and to get caught up. And she is about to release the next installment. So I figure if I start to kind of tackle these now little by little, maybe listen to them when I have the moments to do that, I will be able to take on these next 3 and get caught up. And then read the next one, and then maybe take notes or something so I don't forget. But maybe the next one is the last one. I don't know. There's always a fear for me too in this particular series that it'll come to an end and terrible things will happen and I will be devastated. Does that ever happen to you? Like when you've gotten so accustomed to characters, you just are terribly afraid that something awful is going to happen. So this is number 8. The one that's coming out will be number 9. And I'm honestly not sure how many there will be, and I'm not sure that I want to know. You know, with Harry Potter, I knew when that series was going to come to an end, and I don't know, there's something really challenging about that too. And so I read Harry Potter as they came out, never, kind of stopping. I always kept on with the series, but with these, I don't know, there's just some part of me that just can't bear for them to end. And so maybe that's been my hesitance in kind of keeping up with them. Anyway, I would like to get to these and finish them at some point in a decent period of time. I don't know what that is, but I'll know when I get there. And then the last book that I want to take a look at is The Stand by Stephen King. Depending on which version of this you read, it is 1,153-ish pages. It's pretty intensely large. I have it on ebook, and I purchased it a few years ago when I was going through a Stephen King in order of publication reading group with some other folks online virtually. That reading group fizzled out after the first 2 or 3 reads. I think this was his 3rd novel that he published in order. I think it was originally published in 1978. So it's a bit of an apocalyptic kind of a political premise. The government is involved in some things they shouldn't be. And again, this one is something that it's one of his that I've never read, and I have read a lot of Stephen King's novels over the years. It is kind of the next one in order if I stay in that way of being with him, and it's one of my top 9 in 2019. So that's probably the first one I'm going to tackle because it is coming out in September. So I want to kind of meet those goals. So I probably will put that one at the top of the list of all of these big books that collectively probably would, in a suitcase, put me over the weight limit traveling. Now, I am getting ready to go on another trip, and I know you're thinking, my God, how many trips can this woman go on? I don't know. I am becoming fatigued, but I'll stick with it. I may vlog on this trip, so if I get to pick up Stephen King's The Stand, I'll let you know, but I have a couple of books in my suitcase. I have one I'm reading on ebook that I got from the library that I need to finish. It's a psychological thriller, and then I'm going to start to really take a look at taking some time, reading some larger books, and reaching the goals that I really want to achieve, and read a new author to me, which Greg Iles is not a new author to me. Ken Follett is a new author to me. Diana Gabaldon is not a new author to me, nor is Stephen King. And George R.R. Martin is a new author to me, even though I have seen an adaptation of his work as well. So we'll see how I feel about these big books. Let me know, what are your favorite big books? What keeps you from picking them up, or what keeps you from, or what makes you read those big books over other books? How do you sort of stay on track with them? I would love to know that, because I can sometimes start them and then not get them finished. They end up on my nightstand for months and months and months, as happened to me with this particular book. So how do you stay motivated? Also, are any of you interested in doing a buddy read with me on any of these books? Again, The Stand is one that I'm going to tackle first. I don't know when I'm going to get to some of the others, but if you're interested, I would love to talk about that, because I think maybe that would keep me accountable and give me a mechanism by which I would continue to get through the book, because I had a buddy that was reading it with me. So if that's something you're interested in, give me some information, a comment, send me a direct message, however you want to reach out to me, email me, whatever works for you. I would love to engage in a buddy read with you. So again, the first one I'm going to take a look at is The Stand. So if you're interested in The Stand by Stephen King, and you haven't already read it or you want to reread it, let me know. Let's start there. And then, let me gauge kind of where you guys are with this. And maybe I'll get to these a lot faster than I think I will. That would be great. Thanks again for joining me. I have been so excited, even while traveling, watching the comments come in as the videos post, and learning about what you all are reading and what you are taking a look at as a result of some of the things that I have read. I appreciate that so very much. Now I'm about to go to bed because I have a really early flight, and I will post some videos this week and schedule them ahead, and hope that you enjoy them. And as always, happy reading. Bye.